Be careful when picking your friends. Some of them want you to fall more than your enemies. There's a saying my grandma used to repeat to me when I was a kid. The sharpest knife isn't always in the kitchen. It's in the hand of the one standing next to you. Back then, I didn't really get it. I thought it was just one of those poetic warnings old people like to toss out, the kind that sounds deep but doesn't stick until life hits you with the lesson. Years later, I understood exactly what she meant. The lesson came in the shape of my so called best friend, Dylan. Dylan and I had been friends since middle school. We bonded over video games, pickup basketball, and the fact that neither of us had older siblings. We both played the role of the first son in our families. For years, I thought of him like a brother. He came to my house so often that my mom kept snacks in the pantry labeled Dylan's stuff. He crashed on our couch, ate at our table, celebrated holidays with us when his family couldn't. And when we both hit college age, our paths split in the best way possible. Or so I thought. I went for business and marketing. Dylan? He wasn't sure what he wanted, so he bounced between majors, partied hard, and leaned on me to keep him grounded. It didn't bother me at first. I thought, that's what friends do. We balance each other out. But as we got older, something changed. It started small. Whenever something good happened to me, Dylan would always make a joke that stung more than it should have. I landed my first internship. He said, "Man, don't get too excited. They probably just needed someone to fetch coffee." I bought my first car, a used Honda. He said, "Hope it lasts longer than your last relationship." I shrugged it off. That was Dylan's humor. Sarcastic, a little mean, but harmless. Except it wasn't harmless, because when things went wrong for me, he wasn't sympathetic. He was amused. When I failed a midterm, Dylan smirked and said, "Guess you're not as smart as you act." When I got rejected from a company I dreamed of working for, he said, "Should have seen that coming. You're not exactly top tier." The truth was, Dylan was slipping further behind. He flunked out of classes. He picked up odd jobs but never stuck with them. He lived paycheck to paycheck while I was slowly building a path forward. And instead of being happy for me, he resented me. The breaking point came during senior year. Through sheer persistence, I scored an opportunity with a rising startup. It wasn't glamorous at first, mostly grunt work, but it had massive growth potential. I was hungry, willing to put in the hours. One night, Dylan and I were out grabbing drinks. I told him about the opportunity, the way my eyes lit up just talking about the future. Instead of congratulating me, he frowned. "Man, you really think you're going to make it there? Those places eat guys like you alive. They'll burn you out." I forced a laugh. "Maybe, but I'd rather take the risk than stay stuck." Dylan leaned back, sipping his beer. His eyes were calculating, almost cold. "You always think you're better than everyone else." The words hit harder than he realized, or maybe exactly as hard as he intended, because that's when it clicked. He wasn't joking anymore. He wasn't teasing. He wanted me to fail. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was imagining things. But then little things started happening. One night, Dylan offered to help me with a presentation by proofreading my slides. The next day, I found out he deleted key notes. I looked like an idiot in front of my team. Another time, he tagged along to a networking event I invited him to. Later, I heard from a colleague that Dylan had pulled him aside and said, "Don't take him too seriously. He exaggerates his experience." When I confronted Dylan, he laughed it off. "Man, you're paranoid. I was just joking around." But my gut told me otherwise. And then came the biggest betrayal. It was during my company's first big project, one that could make or break my position. We were tasked with pitching a new client. I spent weeks preparing, working late nights, skipping weekends, pouring everything into making the pitch airtight. Dylan knew how important it was. He knew the date, the time, the stakes. The night before, he invited me out. "One drink," he said, "to celebrate early. You're going to crush it." I should have said no, but he insisted, and I figured one drink wouldn't hurt. Except it wasn't one drink. Dylan kept refilling my glass, pushing shots in front of me, laughing when I tried to refuse. "Come on, don't be lame. You need to loosen up." Next thing I knew, I woke up in his apartment, head pounding, phone buzzing with missed calls. I had overslept. I missed the pitch. My boss was furious. My reputation tanked. And Dylan, he shrugged. "Hey, don't blame me. You're the one who can't handle your liquor." That was the moment I saw him clearly. My friend wasn't rooting for me. He was waiting for me to trip, and when I didn't trip fast enough, he shoved me. I could have cut Dylan off right there, but deep down, I wanted more than distance. I wanted justice, because betrayal from an enemy is expected. Betrayal from a friend, that cuts deeper. That demands payback. So I played dumb. I kept hanging out with Dylan, kept laughing at his jokes, kept sharing just enough about my work to keep him close. But behind the scenes, I started planning. I knew Dylan's weaknesses. He wanted quick success without putting in the work. He loved attention but hated responsibility. And most importantly, he thought he was smarter than he really was. I didn't need to destroy him myself. All I had to do was hand him the rope. It started with a favor. One night, I told Dylan about a side project my company was considering. Completely made up. A chance to get in early on a client who needed help from someone trustworthy. "You've got the charm," I told him. "If you play it right, you could land them and make a name for yourself." His eyes lit up, hook, line, and sinker. I gave him just enough fake details to make it sound real. Names, numbers, fake documents I whipped up on my laptop. He swallowed every bit of it. "Man," he said, grinning, "this is my shot. You'll see. I'll show you I can run circles around you." Perfect. Over the next few weeks, Dylan went all in. He bragged to everyone about his big break. He blew money he didn't have on new clothes to look the part. He skipped his part-time job to prep for meetings that didn't exist. Finally, he told me he was ready to meet the client. That's when I handed him the final piece, an address for the meeting. Except it wasn't a client's office. It was the state unemployment office. When Dylan walked in, suit and tie, carrying a cheap briefcase, he was greeted by confused staff who asked if he was there to file for benefits. The look on his face, when he realized he'd been played, when everyone around him was smirking, when he saw his reflection in the glass doors dressed for success but standing in the unemployment line, was priceless. But the real damage wasn't just the humiliation. Word got around. Fast. Dylan had bragged so loudly about his deal that when people found out it was fake, they laughed him out of every circle he'd been clinging to. No one trusted him. No one wanted to work with him. And me? I didn't even need to lift a finger. I just watched him burn the bridges he set on fire himself. Dylan tried to come back around, of course. He texted me, called me, showed up at my door. "Man, why'd you set me up like that? You're supposed to be my friend. You think you're better than me? You're nothing without me." I let him rant. Then I told him the truth. "You wanted me to fail. You pushed me down every chance you got. You're not my friend, Dylan. You're worse than any enemy I've ever had. At least enemies don't pretend to be family." And with that, I shut the door. For good. It's been years since then. I'm doing well now. Career on track. Real friends who lift me up instead of waiting for me to stumble. Dylan? Last I heard, he's still bouncing between jobs, still blaming everyone else for his failures. I don't hate him anymore. In fact, I'm grateful. Because he taught me the hardest, most valuable lesson my grandma tried to warn me about. Enemies stab you in the front. Fake friends stab you in the back. And sometimes, the sharpest knife is the one you hand to someone who swears they'd never hurt you. Like and subscribe, share if this happened to you or someone you know.